Welcome back to another episode of the Simone NBA Show. I'm your host, Jack Simone. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack Simone NBA. You can follow Heavy on Twitter at Heavy on Sports. And you can find all of Heavy's other links on the YouTube screen to the side of my face. And if you're not on YouTube, you should go over there, hit that subscribe button. It's just Heavy on YouTube. Check us out there. All of the other great podcasts and content that they post there, you can find it there. But anyways, I was supposed to have a guest for you guys today, but unfortunately, things happen. Hopefully we can get that done in the future, but we shall see. Instead, I'm going to be going over my season standings predictions for the East and the West, giving you some thoughts on every team, just a little bit of thoughts, and where I think they'll finish the season. Again, regular season, different from the playoffs. I think that's an important distinction to make. Some news has gone down since the last time we spoke. Ime Udoka suspended for the entirety of the upcoming season by the Boston Celtics for having a relationship with a team staff member that was deemed to be a violation of the organization's code of conduct. Celtics are going to be without their head coach. Joe Mazzulla will step in as the interim head coach. I talked about that on the Celtics Collective podcast with Heavy, so if you want to hear my thoughts on that, you can head over there. It's on the Heavy YouTube channel. You can find them on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Again, the Celtics Collective with my good friends Sean Devaney and Adam Taylor, and Maddie Kroll is the host, who I filled in for. I couldn't exactly fill the shoes, but I tried my best. But in addition to that, the Pistons made a trade with the Utah Jazz, trading Kelly Olynyk and Saban Lee to the Utah Jazz for Bojan Bogdanovic, going a little bit all in there. Either they make a push for the playoffs or they trade him at the deadline for some extra help. It's kind of a win-win for the Pistons. For the Jazz, a little bit confusing because you don't exactly know what they get. Maybe they flip Olynyk, maybe they just like it, maybe they wanted to be off the contract, save a little bit of money. A bit weird, but anyways. Like I said, we're going to be doing standings predictions. I'll be talking a little bit about every team and where I think they'll land. And yeah, we'll kind of go from there. We'll start in the East, and we'll start from the bottom. So we'll work our way up, 15th in the East, I have the Indiana Pacers. The very first episode I had of the Simone NBA Show was me talking about how much I like the Pacers. That being said, they're probably not going to be very good. Tyrese Halliburton is probably one of my favorite players in the league. The way he controls the ball, the way he plays is just very fun for me to watch. I'm a big point guard guy. I love watching great point guards play, and I think he really is the next great NBA pure point guard. He has some weapons out there. Benedict Mathurin's going to be good. I'm a huge Isaiah Jackson fan as well. I think he'll be great. Miles Turner, you're hearing rumblings that he could end up getting traded, so that'll probably happen at some point throughout the season, although we've been saying that for what feels like the past 5 years. They made a deal with the Celtics, so they have Aaron Nesmith, there as well. Chris Duarte, I'm sure I'm forgetting plenty of people, but they have a nice little squad brewing in Indiana, so looking forward to watching them play. Buddy Hield as well, too, but again, he's a veteran, so he'll probably get traded. They'll be fun to watch. I'm going to watch them just for Halliburton, and anybody out there, I recommend you watch some Pacers games just for Halliburton, but probably not going to be the best team in the NBA, hence why I have them 15th. Next up at 14th in the East, I have the Orlando Magic, who had the first overall pick in this past year's draft, drafted Paolo Banchero, have Cole Anthony out there, Wendell Carter Jr., Franz Wagner, who looked great in his rookie season, Markelle Fultz is coming back. We still don't know about John Isaac. You heard an update from the president of basketball operations saying there's still no timetable for his return, so that's getting to it's already past the point of being weird, so that it's just frustrating for Magic fans not to have him back. But Jalen Suggs, first rounder from last year's draft, they have a lot of great players down there in Orlando. Terrence Ross too is there still chilling, but I have them at 14th in the East, around where they were last season. I'm just not a believer in them this season. Long term, they're going to be a team that's going to push for the playoffs, I think, in the next 5 years. But right now, they're still in that rebuilding phase. They've shown promise. They have the talent there to be a solid team on a nightly basis. Like they'll give some teams a run for their money, but at the end of the day, there's just too much talent in the league and in the East right now for them to push for a play-in spot. So I have them at 14, which would be good. They'll be in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. Maybe get Scoot Henderson, another guard in the mix. But yeah, I have them at 14th. Better than the Pacers, but other than that, the lower tier of the Eastern Conference. Next up, I have maybe a surprise, the Charlotte Hornets at 13. The Miles Bridges situation really clouded their offseason. Not their fault at all, just a rough situation to be in. Hopefully they get some clarity on that, but in my opinion, he shouldn't be back in the league. I think he needs to be in, and I think he needs to be banned from the NBA, if that's the correct terminology, but regardless of what happens there, heading into next season, they're looking like a worse roster than they were last year. Obviously, LaMelo Ball is only going to get better. They drafted Mark Williams, a draft that I really like, a draft pick. Terry Rozier still there. Gordon Hayward. I loved the Cody Martin signing. I think that was perfect for them. He's one of my favorite players in the league as well. I really like watching him on defense and as a ball handler. They just signed LiAngelo Ball to their training camp deal, but Although LaMelo Ball was an all-star last year, he has one less piece, one less all-star caliber player to play with. Gordon Hayward can't stand the court. Terry Rozier looks fine, but I think they might take this year to play some of the young guys. At least I think they should. I have to imagine they're probably going to consider Kelly Oubre trades at the deadline. Maybe he's on an expiring deal, so you have to imagine they would. But guys like James Bouknight, guys like Kai Jones, JT Thor, Mark Williams, they should be getting some of these developmental minutes. It might not be ideal for LaMelo Ball, who probably wants to win right now, but with how much talent there is in these, it's hard to imagine them making a push for a playoffs, the play-in, let alone the playoffs. So yeah, I have them slated in at 13. Not going to be fun for LaMelo Ball this season, but with the talent they lost in Miles Bridges, they didn't really do anything in free agency. They just signed Dennis Smith Jr., who will be an okay backup, but they didn't really do much. Lost Montrezl Harrell, they didn't really look to bring him back. Isaiah Thomas, they didn't really look to bring back. The Kemba rumblings you heard haven't happened yet because he's still on the Pistons technically, but yeah, I have the Hornets at 13th. Just kind of a dud of an offseason. They brought back Steve Clifford, which I don't hate as much as most people do. I think the defense will be better, but the fact that they have a new head coach and they lost a talent, an all-star caliber talent, it screams they're going to have a down season, which, sorry, Charlotte, you can't seem to catch a break. But yeah, I'm at 13th in my standings. Up next, I have what might be my first controversial opinion of the podcast, and I know fans are not going to be excited to hear this. I have the New York Knicks at 12th. I have them missing out on the plan and actually being worse than they were the prior season. Now, I want to stress this. I think Jalen Brunson was a good signing. I think he's going to be a solid point guard. I think he'll put up solid stats for the Knicks. But there's more talent in the East. The teams around the Knicks got better, and that's going to hurt them, especially considering they didn't really do much else outside of the Jalen Brunson addition. They brought in Isaiah Hartenstein, which, again, I think is another underrated addition. But in large, the team they have is very similar to the one they had last season, which is fine. It's a borderline playoff team, and they'll be competing. I think teams 10 through 12 on my list are all going to be competing for that 10 spot in the play-in. The Knicks are going to be in the mix. I just had them at 12 in my rankings because I think Julius Randle's going to have another down year, and if anything, I think there could be some drama there this season. Just speculation, nothing I know, but I think there could be some drama surrounding Julius Randle this season if he does want out, if the Knicks don't want to use him. I think there could also be some drama around the young guys. You've heard reports saying Tom Thibodeau doesn't like the Julius Randle Obi Toppin minutes, and Obi Toppin looked great when he was playing without Julius Randle. He dropped a 40-piece. Him and Emmanuel Quickly, who dropped a 30-point triple-double, I believe, looked great as a tandem at the end of that season. They look good, and Julius Randle didn't. But you have Thibodeau, who likes to play his older guys. I think you could run into a situation this year where some of these younger guys who aren't getting the minutes that they think they deserve and probably do deserve could start to get mad. Quentin Grimes, who's in a boot right now, but they say it's just precautionary, so he should be fine. You hear Fournier is going to be the starter again, which I can't imagine people are too happy about in New York. They're probably going to roll out a starting lineup of Jalen Brunson, Evan Fournier, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson again, outside of the obviously Jalen Brunson instead of Kemba Walker, which is an upgrade, but still. I think Julius Randle will have another down year. I think Brunson will be good. I think RJ Barrett, if they give him the keys. They need to give RJ Barrett the keys. I'll say that. They need to play through RJ Barrett. And if they don't, they're going to be bad. If they do, they could surpass my expectations. But it's looking like they're going to play through Julius Randle some more, keep giving him those opportunities. And if that happens again, I think he'll have a down year. I think everyone will start to get frustrated. And it could culminate in Tom Thibodeau being fired. But I think this could be another messy season for the Knicks. And with how much teams around them have improved, I have them at 12. I just don't foresee a good season for New York, unfortunately, because I do believe in RJ Barrett. I love RJ Barrett. I think the Brunson signing was good. I love Isaiah Hartenstein. I love Quickly. I love Toppin. They have a good young core, but they don't play the young core. They refuse to play that young core, and I think either there's drama and everyone gets mad and they're bad, or they do decide to play that young core because they start off poorly, but then in turn that young core still isn't quite good enough to compete for a play-in spot, but they'll get the necessary developmental minutes regardless. I have them at 12, so it's kind of a mix of opinions is what led me to putting them at 12, and it sucks for New York and Bing Bong. They're not going to be happy, but that's where I got them in my prediction. Maybe I'm wrong. I think they'll be fighting for that 10th seed, but I think they'll fall short. At 11, one spot above the New York Knicks, I have the Detroit Pistons. Now, this could also be somewhat controversial because the Pistons probably aren't ready to compete for a play-in spot yet, but I think they're going to be on the cusp. I think Cade Cunningham showed all-star level play last season at the end of the year. Will he be an all-star? I doubt it in a stacked East with a bunch of good guards, but he'll play at an all-star level this year. I think Sadiq Bey can take a step up with Cade Cunningham facilitating. I think Jaden Ivey's going to be a great rookie next to Cade in the backcourt. I think Isaiah Stewart's great. I love the Bogdanovic addition for them. He kind of replaces Jeremy Grant seamlessly. If anything, probably a better fit because he's not as ball dominant, and he's a great shooter for Cade and them to pass out to. Bagley as their backup center will be great. Killian Hayes will get another chance to show some things. Isaiah Livers is another guy at the end of their bench who I don't think gets enough love. The additions of Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel, as solid additions off their bench. Jalen Duren's going to get a bunch of minutes. I think they have a nice little squad going out there in Detroit. I think they're going to win more games than people think, and I think the 11 seed, they're not going to make the play-in, but they'll be right on the cusp, and I do think they'll be better than the Knicks, and I think they'll be on par, maybe like 41-42 wins for one and 40-41 wins for the other. I think they'll be very on par, but expect some good things out of the Pistons. They're going to be very fun. Cade Cunningham is an absolute superstar in the making. You're going to want to watch him. Sadiq Bey is underrated. Jaden Ivey's going to have a good season. Don't forget about Beef Stew. I'm high on the Pistons. I think the Marvin Bagley signing got a lot of flack too for how much they paid him. Who were they bidding against? But it is what it is. I think he had a solid end of the year last year. I think he'll be a good backup center for them. I think they need to play him at the center, though, which kind of stinks for Noel and Duren because they're probably big men, fives as well. But they got a lot of talent in Detroit. They got something great brewing there. I have them at 11, although, again, I think 10, 11, 12. So the team I haven't talked about yet, the Pistons and the Knicks, are right in that same range in the East, competing for that 10th seed. Speaking of the team I have not named, this is probably the biggest controversy maybe I have, controversy in my rankings. I have the Washington Wizards at 10 in the play-in. Last year at the start of the season, the Wizards were a good team. Everyone saw them playing well. Montrezl Harrell on the team, Kyle Kuzma, Caldwell Pope, Bradley Beal. They were a play-in team at the very least. They looked good. They fell off a cliff a little bit. Bradley Beal got hurt. That hurt him a bunch. Drama with Spencer Dinwiddie. Heading into the season, I think the Wizards look better than last year. Johnny Davis didn't play great in Summer League. The draft pick doesn't look great right now. That could turn it around. But even past that, I think they've put a good team around Bradley Beal. If Bradley Beal is healthy, obviously they're signed a giant extension with a no-trade clause, so they have to make it work. They have to be competing. I think Bradley Beal as the superstar, with Kristaps Porzingis, again, people forget about that, as the power forward or center. Porzingis isn't phenomenal. I don't think he'll be an all-star, but he's not like some bum. He still puts up solid stats, and I think playing next to Bradley Beal will be good for him as well. Away from an as ball-dominant player as Luka, I think Porzingis will get his touches back up. Monte Morris, underrated offseason addition. Great point guard to run that offense with Bradley Beal. He does not get enough love. His playmaking, he's been one of the better backup point guards in the league in terms of playmaking for a while now. He should get a chance to be the starter in Washington, and I think he'll do a good job. Will Barton, he got some flack in Denver for being a ball hog and taking some shots like that, but I think if he plays his role right as a secondary or tertiary scoring option to Beal and Porzingis in Washington, I think he should be solid. They got Hachimura and Denny Avdia to play the four for them, which I think are two very good options, especially how young they are. I think either one of them could have a breakout season this year. I can foresee Rui maybe more than Denny because he's been in the league for a year longer, but I think Rui has big things in store, and I think Denny is a defender and a shooter. He hasn't been great shooting the ball, but all it takes is 1 year, one solid stretch, and you're there. Look at Grant Williams for the Celtics last year. And then the guy no one talks about is Daniel Gafford. I think Daniel Gafford deserves a lot of love. I think him as a rim roller, him as a rim protector, he has a lot of potential, very athletic, to play either next to Porzingis or backing him off the bench. Then you got guys like Corey Kispert, like I mentioned, Johnny Davis, and then Delon Wright to be the backup point guard. They got a nice little squad in Washington, and I don't think they're getting enough love. I think the Wizards are going to be a real team to watch out for in terms of the play-in race, and that might not be much to Celtics fans or Lakers fans because it's title town or bust in cities like that. But for Washington, with Bradley Beal, who've been out of the playoffs for so many years, who've struggled to get back after John Wall's injuries in the trade, outside of that one Russell Westbrook year, I think you're looking to compete with Bradley Beal, and I think the team they've assembled is underrated. I think it'll be the 10th seed. Like I said, I have them above the Pistons and the Knicks. Them above the Knicks is a bit controversial, I guess, but I think the Wizards are a real team to look out for, and I think they end up snagging that 10th seed in the East. Next up, we have the Chicago Bulls at the 9th seed. Unfortunate news that Lonzo Ball is going to be out for the first half of the season at least, or maybe a little less than half the season with his arthroscopic knee surgery, but They've got a good squad in Chicago, made some okay offseason moves, adding Andre Drummond and Goran Dragic to come off the bench, drafting Dalen Terry, Dalen Terry. I can't remember which one it is. I apologize. But they look good. DeRozan's going to be back. He's going to be playing well. Will he play as good as last year? I doubt it. So that's a reason for them to be slipping a little bit in these standings. Vucevic, again, probably on the decline a little bit. LaVine just got the bag. He should be great. He should be the uncut, unquestioned leader this year. Unquestioned is what I was looking for. But yeah, it's tough without Lonzo Ball. They're going to struggle a little bit, I think, out the gates. Kobe White should be able to cover. Dosunmu should be able to cover. Alex Caruso should be able to cover, but they won't be the same without Lonzo Ball. I think that ends up having them fall a little bit in the standings, especially with how much talent is in the East. I think these next 7 teams I'm about to talk about could all push for top 5 seeds, and the Bulls just can't with an injury to Lonzo Ball. And if they were healthy, I think they could be up there competing for a real playoff spot, but right now it's looking like they're not going to be able to. Next up at 8, we have the Atlanta Hawks. Added DeJounte Murray this offseason, one of the bigger deals of the summer. He and Trae Young are going to be a very fascinating backcourt to watch out for. The offensive Trae Young, obviously the defensive DeJounte Murray. They have John Collins still, despite the trade rumors. Took some pictures at the Big Three as media day, so they're looking for that. They had them all write out goals on their whiteboards. They all said championship, but Clint Capella said Eastern Conference Finals. Maybe a little more realistic goal from the veteran, but they got a solid starting lineup out there. DeAndre Hunter showed some real promise in those 4 or 5 games. I think it was 5 games, in the first round of the playoffs against the Heat. He could really turn up. You run out Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, Clint Capella. That's a really solid starting lineup, and they could honestly outperform my expectations. I have them at 8. They could be a top 5 team in the East if everything clicks, but there's a lot of talent above them who I think deserve to be above them, which is why I have them lower. But hey, one slip up from one of these top teams, and the Hawks are right there. So I have them at 8, but they have a lot of room to be better. That's just my conservative estimate because the teams above them I think are more talented right now and have shown to be more talented in the past couple seasons. At 7, I have the Toronto Raptors. I struggled with the Raptors a little bit because I personally am a big fan of the Raptors. I think they'll be, they have the talent to be a top 5 team. I think they get slept on and overlooked a lot, in some rankings. They didn't make a ton of moves this summer. Otto Porter Jr. I thought was an underrated signing. He's going to be great for them. Siakam's still there. Van Vliet's still there. OG Anunoby's still there. Chris Boucher, Tad Young, Precious Achiuwa. But the guy is Scotty Barnes. They didn't want to include him in any Kevin Durant trades, and I think the internal improvement and development of Scotty Barnes will tell how good the Raptors do this season. Again, like I said when I was talking about the Hawks, there's a lot of talent in the East, but the Raptors have one of the best coaches in the NBA. They have Scotty Barnes, one of the best young stars. They have Pascal Siakam, who was All-NBA last year. Fred VanVleet, made his first All-Star team. They have a lot of talent in Toronto. Do not sleep on the Raptors. I have them at 7, but that's purely because of how many talented teams, are above them. Watch out for the Raptors next season. Scotty Barnes could blow up and be the superstar he's destined to be. 6th seed in the East, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers, just traded for Donovan Mitchell, arguably the biggest trade of the offseason. Everyone was waiting for KD or Donovan Mitchell to get traded, and Donovan Mitchell went to the Cavs. Everyone thought he was going to go to the Knicks, but ended up in Cleveland. A lot of people are going to have them skyrocketing into that top tier of the East. I have them lower. I have them at 6, getting a playoff spot, avoiding the play-in, but not getting that home court advantage people are playing for. And the reason because I've said it, for the Raptors and the Hawks, there's just so much talent above them. And I think the Garland-Mitchell backcourt is going to be great. But when this trade went down, I believe I came on this podcast and said, how much of an upgrade is Donovan Mitchell over Colin Sexton? And obviously they didn't have Colin Sexton for the majority of last season when they were winning so well. So adding any player into that role, I think would help them a lot, Sexton or Mitchell. And Mitchell is the better player, don't get me wrong. But you look at their averages, their builds, the fact that they're not great defenders at all. Utah's best defensive lineup last season didn't have Donovan Mitchell, and it was one of the best defensive lineups in the NBA. I was just looking at some stats earlier. Out of all lineups, 5-player lineups that played 200 plus minutes last year, Utah had one of the second or third best defensive lineup in the NBA, and it didn't include Mitchell. Not to say they would have been worse without Mitchell. Obviously, what he brings to the table is superstar caliber, 3-time All-Star 3 years in a row, and he'll bring that to the Cavs, but I don't know. I'm just not as high on the trade as a lot of other people are, and I think they may be overpaid a little bit for Donovan Mitchell. Do I think they'll be good? Yes, absolutely. You have to imagine, though, it'll take them some time to gel, though, even with how much talent they have. I love Garland, Mobley, Jared Allen, and adding Mitchell to that's going to make them better, but Again, lots of talent in the East. I have them at sixth. And before I move them up my ranks, they need to prove that they can gel together and that team works. So we'll see. I have them at six for now. Conservative estimate, I guess, but I'm just not as high on the Donovan Mitchell deal as a lot of other people are. Next up at five, I have the Brooklyn Nets, and this one probably has the most flexibility of any ranking I made in these predictions. If the Nets are good, they're a top three team in the East. No question, they have the talent. But if everything fails, they are a lottery pick, right? Like out of the playoffs, and we won't really know. I have to assume they'll be fine. Ben Simmons coming back. I'm so excited for Ben Simmons to come back. I love watching him play. The defense, the playmaking. He just went on JJ Redick's podcast, which was a phenomenal listen. I'm about halfway through, three-quarters of the way through right now, but loving every second. The way he talked, the way he explained stuff with Philly and stuff like that. It's great, but excited to see him back on the court. He teased about shooting threes in Brooklyn, so hopefully we can see a little bit of that. But no, in reality, his defense and playmaking next to two of the greatest shooters of all time is going to be fun to watch. KD back in full form, hopefully. Kyrie, hopefully back in full form. Got Joe Harris, TJ Warren, one of the better underrated signings of the offseason. Joe Harris coming back, Patty Mills back, Markieff Morris, who Steve Nash said is a center, which is a bit odd, but sure. Yeah, they got a great team. Claxton's there. He's young. Cam Thomas could have a breakout season. I have him at 5, but again, if everything gels, if they're all playing and ready to go, they're a top 3 team. If not, they're a lottery pick. A lot of, variation there, so I put them at 5, kind of in the middle. Safe estimate. At 4, I have the Miami Heat. Everyone's talking about the loss of PJ Tucker. They could trade for Jay Crowder if that happens. Maybe they'll be bumped up to the 3 a little bit. But right now, I'm at 4. People tend to disrespect the Miami Heat. They were the 1 seed last year, and people are writing them off like the Nets are better, the Cavs are better. Some people like the Heat are real. Eric Spoelstra is one of, if not the best coach in the NBA outside of Greg Popovich. Jimmy Butler is a superstar. Bam Adebayo can always take that next step. He's great regardless of if he does or not, though. Tyler Hero looked great last season. Kyle Lowry looks in shape this offseason. Oladipo's there, second year back from injury. Caleb Martin looked great last year. Max Strus is there. Duncan Robinson's there as well, and people count him out, but I think he could have a bounce back season, just like snap of a finger. I think he could be back. So not much else to say about the Miami Heat. I think they'll be a home court advantage team in the East. People sleep on them, talk about they don't have the power forward. They could trade for Jay Crowder. They could run double bigs. Jimmy can play the 4. Duncan Robinson, slide him at the 4, cover from on defense. They've got options. They've got a great coach, a great team. I have them as a home court advantage team, sliding them in at the 4 right now. They could improve, and maybe they disappoint, but I believe in the Miami Heat. I'm a big Heat believer, so that's where I got them. At 3, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. I think this is the start of the title contending teams. I think the Sixers have all the tools they need to win a championship this season. The PJ Tucker addition was amazing. He'll be great next to Joel Embiid. I think he's exactly what you need. Doc Rivers talking about how he's a 3. Sure, play him wherever you want. He's a forward. He can play center. He's just a great defender, a great 3-point shooter. That's what you need next to Embiid. And James Harden, too, who looks great. Montrezl Harrell addition to play that backup center. That kind of answers a question for them. He should be great. They just have a really solid roster. James Harden, Joel Embiid, we're going to get to see them for a full season, which is huge. That's exactly what you want to see. Matisse Thybulle's there as well, obviously, for the defense. They lost Seth Curry, obviously, and Andre Drummond to the Nets last season, which I didn't love. I thought those were very, very important pieces in Philly. But when you have Joel Embiid and now James Harden, you can't really complain. They've got one of the best rosters in the NBA. This might be James Harden's best roster. Joel Embiid's best roster since that 2019, I believe, Philly team with Jimmy Butler when they lost to the Raptors on that Kawhi shot. I think they have a really good chance to make a run this season. Tobias Harris there as well. And how can I forget about Tyrese Maxey? I was racking my brain to think of their shooting guard, and obviously it's Maxey, who's got to be due for another breakout season. Tobias Harris, I think if he plays his role the right way, he'll be great. He gets overlooked a little bit because of his contract, but Maxey, Harris, Harden, Embiid, they've got a great squad. PJ Tucker, Harrell off the bench, who could be a 6-man of the year again, you never know. They've got a good squad. I have them at 3rd right now. Next up at 2, I have the Boston Celtics. Regardless of the Ime Udoka situation, the Robert Williams injury, I think they'll pull it together. They've got all the talent in the world to be the 2 seed once again this season. Marcus Smart, reigning Defensive Player of the Year, he's going to be back better than ever. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, 2 All-Stars, All-NBA caliber players. Obviously, Tatum is the superstar, the MVP guy, but Jaylen Brown is there too. You can't count him out. Al Horford getting older, yes, but he looked amazing in the playoffs last year. He's been working on his body all season, he said. So he should be back and better than ever. They added Malcolm Brogdon too, which you can't overlook. Going to be one of the better six men in the league, just like I said about Harrell. He can even step into the starting lineup a little bit. Derek White is there, who's a great guard off the bench. He's a starting caliber guard. Grant Williams could have another breakout season. He's itching for a contract extension right now. Another shooter to bring off the bench. Cornette and Hauser probably aren't the best additions, rotation guys, but they've got them too. And then once Robert Williams gets back, they should be back to normal. The coaching thing is tough. It's a tough way to start the season, but you still got to look at them and say that's a top seed in the East, and I have them at 2 right now. And the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. They didn't do much this offseason. They signed Joe Ingles to play a small role there. Bobby Portis they brought back. They drafted Marjon Beauchamp. Hopefully I said that right. But they're the Bucks. They've got Giannis. They've got Middleton. They've got Drew. That's all they need. There's really not much else for me to say. I had Boston above them before the Udoka thing, but I think that could get in the way a little bit. Bucks, I have them. I think they could win 60 games if Giannis plays, if he gets hurt or they deal with injuries. I think 50 to 55. I've got them at the 1 seed in the East. I think the Bucks are just going to be top notch, just like they are every season. Moving over to the Western Conference in the 15th seed, I have the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously traded DeJounte Murray this summer. Looks like they're going to be going full tank mode. When Greg Popovich is at media day saying, probably don't bet on us to win the championship in Las Vegas, you know they're probably not going to be the best team in the league. Handed Keldon Johnson a massive contract extension just this summer that looks great. I'm a huge Jeremy Sohan fan. I think he's going to be a great rookie. Defensively, one of the best in the class. This year's Herb Jones. I almost said Justin Herbert. Herb Jones, maybe. I think he's more of a big than that, but I think Sohan can be really good. They'll be fun to watch, I think, just for me personally, because of Sohan and Keldon Johnson. And Trey Jones is a solid point guard, could get some starting minutes, but probably going to look to trade some of their veterans at the deadline. Expect them to be a top pick team in the draft, so I have it 15th in my predictions for next season. At 14th, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're poised to make a jump in the standings in the next few seasons, but with the injury to Chet Holmgren, I just don't see that being this year. You're hearing some injury news to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Hopefully he'll be back for the season. Josh Giddey can get another year of development. Lou Dort can as well. But their roster's still a little bit of a mess. It doesn't look great right now. They're probably going to be towards the bottom. They'll be fun to watch just to see the young guys develop and see if they can do things. I think Jalen Williams, both of them, should be fun. Holmgren injury sucks. But this should be fun. Shai Gilgeous is fun. Dort is fun. Giddey is fun. Thunder, the key word there is fun, because there's probably not going to be too much winning. So focus on the basketball instead of the result. Have them at 14. Next up at 13, I have the Utah Jazz. Could be some flexibility here. They could drop down all the way to 15th if they tank right, but they still have some of their veterans on the roster. Have to imagine some of those guys will get moved before the start of the season. Colin Sexton is the real star of the show here. Should be able to get a ton of touches in Utah, which should be great for his development. Lauri Markkanen too, star forward. There's really not much else to say about the Jazz. Kessler should be fun. Agbaji should be fun. They have a ton of picks. They're looking to tank. That's about all there is to say about the Utah Jazz. I have them at 13th, but they could drop even lower if they end up trading most of these veterans, which I have to assume they'll do. So that's where I got them. I got them at 13th. At 12, I have the Houston Rockets. Now, I think the Rockets could be a bottom-tier team below the Thunder, the Spurs, the Jazz, but I think they have a chance to take a little bit of a jump here. I think Jabari Smith's a great addition. He fell to them in the draft, even though they thought they were going to get Paolo Banchero. Is that for the better? Maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on those two. I think Chet's the best guy in the draft. That's another opinion for a different day, though. But I think Kevin Porter Jr. is great. I think Jalen Green could take a real jump. If he gets his efficiency down, I could see him taking a second-year jump, sort of like the one we see Anthony Edwards take. I like Alperen Şengün. I wasn't a big believer at the draft. I enjoy his game now. I'm still not as high on him as some people, but I think he's a great addition. I think he'll be solid. They lost Christian Wood, which could see them lose some games, but with how much the Thunder, the Jazz, and the Spurs are taking, I think the Rockets could take a little bit of a jump like the Pistons this year. They're not on the Pistons level yet, I don't think, but I think with the jump from Jalen Green, Steven Silas playing all these young guys, Eric Gordon's still there for now, might trade him, but I think they could be sneaky okay this year. The 12th through 15th seed in the West could all be interchangeable. The Rockets, Jazz, Thunder, and Spurs. I think any of them could be anywhere from 12 to 15. If anything, I might even change that and put the Thunder up to where the Rockets are and switch the two. But I'm going to stick with my guns, say Jalen Green has a nice season. I don't know. It's just tough because the Thunder and the Rockets, I'm kind of mixed on them and the Jazz. Maybe I switch them around. Maybe I put the Thunder up towards where the Rockets are. But I'm just not confident that Shea makes it through the whole season healthy. Chet's not there either. I'm not confident they play Dort the whole season. I think they might take another tank year, unfortunately, while Tank is out and use it as, while Chet is out and use it as an opportunity. And I think the Rockets won't do that. I think they'll look to win games, even though they won't win many. I think they'll be more in the winning mindset, and I think they'll be solid this year. Yeah, I'm confident in them. They got Ty Washington too. They've got a nice squad there. I've got them at 12, although I think 12 to 15 will all be really, really bad teams in the West. At 11 and just missing out on the playoffs, I have the Sacramento Kings. I'm sorry, Kings fans. I think they had a phenomenal offseason. Signing Malik Monk was great. Trading for Kevin Huerter was great. All the moves they made this offseason, drafting Keegan Murray, I think was a much better decision than a lot of people give them credit for. But I think they're just going to fall just short. I think they fall just short of the playoffs. Mike Brown, I actually like the coaching hire. De'Aaron Fox could take a step. Domantas Sabonis playing with Fox for an entire season. Keegan Murray's great. Starting Herder, I would assume Malik Monk off the bench, but regardless, two good signings. They have Rashawn Holmes, Harrison Barnes. They've got a solid lineup, but I think they just fall short because of the talent in the West. And there's not much else to say about that. Davion Mitchell could have another season. I just don't think they have the talent to sneak into that play-in this year. Heading up to number 10 and the play-in in the West, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. I think the Kings could honestly sneak in over the Lakers this year, but I've got to go with LeBron and Anthony Davis, even after last year's spectacle. I think Russ comes back and under Darvin Ham can actually have a better impact on the Lakers than he did under Frank Vogel. Not that I think they should have fired Frank Vogel. I think it was kind of a cop-out, but Ham looks prepared to come in and put Westbrook in a position to succeed. I think the signings they made this offseason were a complete 180 from what they did last year, which is great. Should they have found some sort of middle ground and not sign all young players versus all old players? Probably, but I like the young players better than the older players. It sucks that they had to trade Stanley Johnson, but getting Patrick Beverley back for Horton Tucker was huge. I think he'll be a great piece for them to utilize. Thomas Bryant signing was underrated. Damian Jones, I think, will be a really good piece for the Lakers coming back there after a season in Sacramento where he looked pretty good. Austin Reeves should step up into a larger role. He looks good. They're two-way guys. They're rookies. Max Christie, they look fine. Ready to step up. Troy Brown Jr., Juan Toscano Anderson. They don't have great depth, but they have young players who have something to prove, and I think that means a lot in the NBA. So behind LeBron and AD, looking to get not revenge, but looking to got to get back into the playoffs after a very, very poor season with Russ there as well, who media day didn't sound great for us. Doesn't exactly sound like the Lakers want him there. And maybe they could trade him at the deadline, find that Turner and Hield trade, giving up one first instead. But again, we'll see. I think the Lakers will slide into the play-in at 10, barring LeBron James and Anthony Davis health. But I have them at 10 right now. At 9, I have the Portland Trailblazers. I think I might be a little higher on the Blazers than most people, but you got to consider Dame coming back for a season, hopefully healthy, feeling the best he has in years, according to him, after that surgery he had a while back. Finally, right, that looks good. Yusuf Nurkic is back. Anthony Simons took a big jump last year. They just paid him. We'll see if that works out. Not exactly the best defender, but he can score. You got Jeremy Grant in town now, which I think was a great trade for them at the value they got. He should be able to play very well next to Dame as a defender and as a secondary scorer. I think Gary Payton, the second, was a great signing for them too. He should be a great guard off the bench unless they want to start him with Dame and bring Simons off the bench with that. I think that could be a valid option, the defense, offense, and then, having Simons as the sixth man, who would probably have sixth man of the year candidacy. But the biggest part of the Blazers that I'm excited for is, and I tweeted this out, I think Josh Hart wins most improved player this year. I think what he showed at the end of last season was exactly what Damian Lillard needs. And I was talking to a friend on Twitter. I think Josh Hart is a better fit next to Dame than CJ McCollum ever was. I think he can average 20 points if he gets opportunities. Will he get the opportunities? No. But I think he could be a 15-point per game scorer in Portland this year next to Dame and Jeremy Grant and Simons. I think he can average 7 or 8 rebounds. I think he can average 4 assists. I think he can shoot 35% from 3, 50% from... I think he's the perfect player. His 3 and D, what he showed at the end of last season, I think he has all the potential in the world, and I think that defense next to Dame equals a breakout for Josh Hart. I like this Portland team, but I think they're 9. I think they're better than Lakers and the Kings, but I think they slot in at 9 in that play-in just because of how much talent's in the West. But Josh Hart's going to be the player to watch for me next year. I love Dame. I think I'm higher on Portland than some people. I have him at 9 right now, but like I said, Josh Hart for most improved player. Watch, just you wait, watch out. Number 8 in the West for me is the New Orleans Pelicans. I think they could be higher. They have the talent to be higher, but with how long Zion's been out, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for them to gel. Their starting lineup, I believe, from the picture they took at Media Day, could be CJ, Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones, Zion, and Valanciunas. They have a chance to do something special. I think it'll take some time to gel with Zion, and with how much talent is in the West, I think they'll end up at 8, but they could be a top 6 seed in the West. They could be a home court advantage team. They have all the talent to be that. I just think it'll take some time to gel on the court with Zion, at least for this season. So I have them at 8, and I like that CJ extension. It's a lot of money, but he's a core piece. He's still got some years left. I got them at 8 right now, with plenty of room for improvement past that rank. Broke my heart to do this, but I got the Mavericks at 7. I've got to be the biggest secondary Dallas Mavericks fans you'll ever meet. In my playoff predictions before the playoffs last year, I had the Mavericks going to the finals. I predicted them to beat the Suns in 7. I called it. I have the receipts somewhere. I'll have to dig those up. I think my buddy on Twitter got mad at me, but Luka and the Mavericks I have at 7 purely because of how much talent. I keep saying that. There's so much talent in the NBA this year, so I've got to slide the Mavericks down to 7. They could be a top 3, top 4 team in the West. I love the Christian Wood trade, even though he's coming off the bench, which is causing some early drama. JaVale McGee trade is great, but they lost Jalen Brunson and they didn't really replace him. Spencer Dinwiddie should step up into that starting lineup, but with the improvements other teams made, I have them sliding down to 7, but they probably still will be a 50-win team. I think there could be a lot of 50-win teams in the West with how weak the bottom is and how talented the top is. So their ceiling is a top seed in the West in the finals because they have Luka, and that will always be Luka's ceiling. But that floor, I think they'll probably finish around 7. 7 to 3 is probably where I have them, but in this predictions I have right now, just because of the talent, I have them at 7. At 6, one spot above where they finished last year, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves, and some T-Wolves fans might be upset. I think when I put my predictions out on Twitter, I had them at 7, but after restructuring and rethinking, I have them at 6. Might be upset seeing, the Timberwolves gave up all those picks just to be one spot higher, but again, there's so much talent in the West, it's not going to be that easy. So I have them at 6. I think the Rudy, Karl-Anthony Towns combo is going to be a lot better than people imagine. The two bigs lineup, we've seen it work. Obviously, Towns isn't that great defender, but that's why they got Rudy, and vice versa on the offensive side. Excuse me. They have D'Lo still to run the point. They have Anthony Edwards, who I think could take a massive jump. I think he could lead them in scoring this year. I don't think that's crazy. He's a great talent. They got him at number 1, and they got to give him the keys. Past that, Jaden McDaniels, they kept him in the trade. That was a great move. They brought in some solid bench pieces. Kyle Anderson, Bryn Forbes, Austin Rivers. They still have Naz Reid. They've got a good squad in Minnesota, man. Watch out for them. I have them at 6 because of the talent, but they could another team just like the Mavericks. Any of these 1 through 7 teams in the West, I think could be top 3. They're all very, very talented. So I've got the T-Wolves at 6 right now. At number 5, a bit of a fall from grace from the 1 seed. I have the Phoenix Suns at 5, and it might be a bit controversial, but I just think they fall off a little bit. At Media Day, you saw Ayton clearly not too happy with his position on the Suns. Probably wanted to go to the Pacers. Not a fan of the contract situation, even though they matched. Probably wanted to leave Phoenix altogether. The Robert Sarver news was just a downer on the season too, although that probably won't affect the players on the court, but it just kind of stinks. And then now this Jay Crowder thing, with Crowder posting his own trade hype video on Twitter. Gonna deal him, probably to make room for Cam Johnson to enter that starting lineup, which probably is for the best, but I just feel like they're going to fall off. Chris Paul's getting older. Devin Booker's still young, obviously, but with the Ayton thing and the Crowder thing and just everything going on, the talent in the West, which is there's so much of it, guys and other teams coming back from injury, I got the Suns at 5. They'll be a 50-win team again, I think, but I got them at 5 right now. At 4, I have the Memphis Grizzlies, the 2 seed last year. All their young guys are going to improve. They're going to be better. They lost Kyle Anderson, which kind of stinks a little bit because he was a good piece for them, but got Desmond Bane, brought back Tyus Jones, Steven Adams still there, Jaren Jackson Jr., who I saw a Twitter friend of mine saying he doesn't get enough love. Jaren Jackson Jr. deserves all the love. Defensive Player of the Year candidate, all defensive team. He's great. He should be better. Continue improving at his young age. Excuse me, and obviously John Morant. I mean, come on, it's John Morant. If you don't know by now, you'll never know. So I got him at 4 just because of the teams above them have some guys coming back from injury and look like they're going to be dominant again. But I think, obviously, with the talent they have and what they showed last year, they could be anywhere from the 1 seed in the West. But with the talent, could drop as far as 6. I think is probably my low point for them, unless something really goes wrong and they're in the play-in. But I got them at 4 in my early on before season predictions at training camp. Next up, we have the reigning champs, the Golden State Warriors. Lost Otto Porter Jr., Gary Payton, and Nemanja Bjelica this offseason. Brought in Dante DiVincenzo. Wait, what did I say? Otto Porter Jr. I did say Gary Payton. I thought I mixed up my words there for a sec. Excuse me. Brought in Dante DiVincenzo, JaMychal Green. That's great. They have all these young guys ready to step up. They have Kuminga, Moses Moody, James Wiseman coming back. Cross your fingers from injury. Their rookies, Ryan Rollins, Patrick Baldwin. They look great. Draymond Green, obviously Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, all there, the big 3, Kevon Looney, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins. I have them at 3 and not 1 because they're not a regular season team. They've shown that. They just need to get to the playoffs and have home court advantage, and then they're going to be sailing. They could deal with injuries. They could deal with contract drama, which not the time to speak about that, but interesting to watch. You've heard some original reporting about Draymond potentially being willing to leave, even though he doesn't want to after the season, from Heavy.com. Shout out Sean Devaney and sources, but they're a playoff team. They're not a regular season team. They're going to have guys be out. Klay Thompson's going to take the necessary rest. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, all these guys are going to get the necessary rest for the playoffs when it really counts, which is why I have them at a conservative 3. They could even be 4, but they're a playoff team, not a regular season team, which is why they're not 1 or 2 before you come from ahead, Dubs fans. But that's why I got them at 3. At 2, I have the LA Clippers, another team that you could argue is a playoff team, but I think they're going to show why they are so good this year. For the past few seasons, Kawhi, Paul George have dealt with their injuries. Last year, both of those guys are out for the majority of the season, but this year, they're ready. They seem good to go, ready to come back. Kawhi's playing 5-on-5. PG came back at the end of last season. They brought back John Wall. They brought in John Wall to be the point guard or backup point guard. They have some of the best depth in the NBA. They look stacked, absolutely stacked. If PG and Kawhi can even play 60 games, I think this is a 2 seed with championship aspirations, and they'll be ready for the playoffs. Like with the Warriors, they're going to be a playoff team rather than regular season. But regardless of that, they've got the talent behind their 2 guys in Kawhi and PG to be a top seed in the West, and I have them at 2 right now. Big things for the Clippers. Big things. And lastly, as my number 1 seed in the Western Conference, I have the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. should both be coming back, if not right away, very soon. Jokic, 2-time back-to-back MVP, added Bruce Brown, added Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, made some good offseason additions. I think the Nuggets are going to be stacked this year. If Murray and Porter Jr. can come back and help Jokic, I think this is a top team, the top team clearly in the West, with title hopes. Murray is an all-star caliber player. Porter Jr. is one of the best shooters in the league when healthy, and 6'10", which we don't talk about. Having those 2 star players next to Jokic, who has had to carry this team for the past 2 seasons by himself, is going to be a huge help, take a huge weight off his shoulders, and I think the Nuggets are going to be a force in the West. They could be a case of a regular season team rather than the playoffs. We don't know that yet, but the one thing I do know for sure is they're going to be a good regular season team with their stars back, so I have them at number 1 in the West, Denver Nuggets next year. And that'll be it for this episode of the Simone NBA Show. Just to recap my Eastern Conference standing predictions before the season during training camp right now. In the East, from top to bottom, 1 to 15, I have Bucks, Celtics, Sixers, Heat, Nets, Cavs, Raptors, Hawks, Bulls, Wizards, Pistons, Knicks, Hornets, Magic, Pacers. And in the West, top to bottom, I have number 1, Nuggets, Clippers, Warriors, Grizzlies, Suns, Timberwolves, Mavericks, Pelicans, Blazers, Lakers, Kings, Rockets, Jazz, Thunder, Spurs. We'll come back at the end of the season, see how right or likely how wrong I was. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully we'll have a guest for you guys next week. Just working on some scheduling things, and we should have that done. It'll be a fun one. It'll be a very fun one, so I'm excited for it. So you guys should be as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're on YouTube, which you should be, subscribe to the YouTube. It's just Heavy on YouTube. Check out all these links next to my face for all of Heavy socials. You can find them on Twitter at Heavy on Sports. You can find me, your host, Jack Simone, on Twitter at Jack Simone NBA. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the Simone NBA Show brought to you by Heavy. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace out.